Hello everybody, welcome to Excel for Teachers. Today we're going to look at the IFERROR function to capture and deal with errors returned from your formulae. So let's start with a standard worksheet that's got our students arranged alphabetically by first name and the test results for 4 tests. In column G, I'm going to calculate the average, the mean value for these 4 tests. Now the first student here has only got test results for 3 tests, so the average function is quite clever. It knows there's no values in this test 3 column, so it actually only produces the value of the average, the mean value for 3 tests. Likewise, this value here is the average of 2 tests, and the value here is 46 because it's just that value itself. Where the formula evaluates to an error is here for Andreas, where he's got 4 missing values. So what happens is the average function is trying to take 0 values and divide by a 0 quantity, a 0 number of values. So 0 divided by 0 evaluates to, well, it evaluates to an error, divide by 0, because anything divided by 0 is infinity. So if I copy that formula down, whilst it works in most cases, it breaks every time there is a student with no values in there. Now, on face value, that's not hugely worrying, but if I try and order my students by the value of this mean column, so let's call this column the mean value, and I'm now going to try and order my students by this mean column from largest to smallest. Say I'm going to set the students. What happens is those students with no values here appear at the top of the list. Might be inconvenient, but also it may well prevent further processing, because if I try and calculate a mean value including these divide by zeros, the function fails at that point. So let me just undo that and go back to my learners sorted in the proper value. What I'm now going to do is, instead of just using the average function, I'm going to go back into my function, I'm going to edit it, and at the start of the function I'm going to put IFERROR, and what the IFERROR function does is it evaluates the function next to it. So IFERROR average C2 to F2. If that is an error, I want you to do the thing that I'm going to type in after the comma, which is actually a 0. I actually just want you to say the answer's 0. So if the average function returns an error, let's pretend it's 0. If it works perfectly fine, let's just do the average function. That's kind of what that means. So it'll make no difference here. And in fact, if I copy it down to these 3 values, it's made no difference. But now if I copy over this div 0, we'll find that the div 0 has changed to 0, because it's evaluated out that divide by 0 to say, look, that's an error, so hey, let's pretend it's just 0. So I'm now just going to double click, copy that formula down. Not much changed, except all of these errors evaluated away now to a 0. So in this case, if I highlight my data and I sort it by the mean value from largest to smallest, it sorts correctly, and right at the bottom of my list are all of my learners who didn't achieve any test scores. I'm going to go back to the top of my list and unsort it. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We just used the IFERROR function to evaluate and deal with our formulae that produce an error. This is Excel for Teachers. That was the IFERROR function, and I'm Mr. GPG. Thanks for listening. Please rate and comment below.